using the quadratic formula some more. Okay. So if I was to solve this using the quadratic formula, try to take number 1 as far as you can go on your own, moving everything to one side. Now keep in mind, in number 1, you could choose to move everything to the left. Other people could choose to move everything to the right. You would have different A, B, and C values. They'd be opposites, positives and negatives. But you can still get the same answer together. Okay? Before you finish solving, take a look at the discriminant and remember what we just said. Tell me whether it will have 2 imaginary solutions, which we would call no solution. Whether it would have 2 real solutions or 1 real solution. Okay. Are we all going to move the 3x squared, or are we going to move everything to the left? Most of us will move the 3x squared. Okay, so start that out. Just going to pause this for a minute, and then we'll see where we get on this one. I didn't finish this problem out yet because I want to finish it out together. So here's where I got with this one. I moved everything to one side, and I simplified the number under the square root. Can we all get to this point? Yes? Okay. Before I even do anything with that 208, okay, this is what the discriminant tells us. This 208 is a positive number. It tells me the number and type of solutions. So if it's a positive number, it tells me this quadratic is going to have how many solutions? 2 real solutions. Okay? Doesn't mean that they're going to be nice numbers. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be square roots. It just means I get 2 answers for this. That's it. Now, from here, we talked about this last class. What's the first question I ask about 208?
It doesn't divide by 4.
It
doesn't divide by 4. Yes, it does.
Okay.
Well, it does, but
It's not the first question we ask. The first question we ask about 208 is what? Does it square root nicely by itself?
No.
No. Secondly, we ask what numbers do go into 208 that I can square root? Okay, yes, it could be 4 and 52. That is not, however, the largest perfect square. The largest perfect square is 16 and what? 13. So then what do I do with 16? I take the what? Square root, which is 4. Goes on the outside. What happens with 13? Goes inside. And then what is the last question I ask myself about these numbers outside? Greatest common factor. In that case, they all divide by what? 2. So my final answer is going to look like what? -4 plus or minus 2 square root 13 over 3. That is the same thing we just did. We can stop in the middle and say what kind of solutions are we going to have at the end. That's all. Or I could just ask you a question on a test that says, look at this quadratic. Tell me what types and how many solutions you're going to have. Like, I might not even ask you to solve it. That's just a multiple choice question. 2 real, 2 imaginary or no, and then 1 real solution. Okay? So that could be an easy question as long as you know what to look for, which is that number under the square root. Okay, let's try number 2. Do I have to move everything or no?
No.
No, because it's already equal to what? 0. So what's my A, what's my B, what's my C? 3, 5, -12. Okay, so we're going to plug this in. So yes, today is mostly the same as what we did last class. But am I wrong in thinking that we need another day to practice it? I didn't think so. So I plug everything into my formula, and the first thing I do is I simplify everything under the square root, which we now know is called the discriminant. So take a minute on your paper. Simplify the number under the square root, and then tell me the number and type of solutions you are going to have for this problem before finishing it. All right, so we got 169 under the square root. A positive number tells me that I'm going to have how many of what type? 2 real solutions. So if I asked you how many types, or how many in what type of solution, that's where you could stop. You wouldn't have to finish. Okay? However, we're also asking to solve in this one. So the first question I asked myself about 169 is what? Can I square root that perfectly? Yes. What is it? 13. So let's remember, when you can square root it perfectly, I don't have to take out any number from the square root because it's gone now. So how do I finish this? Add and then subtract. So my first thing I do is -5 plus 13. That gives me 8 over 6, which I reduce to what? 4 over 3. That's my first answer. -5 minus 13 gives me -18 over 6, which reduces to what? -3. If you get answers like that, that means it could have factored. Okay, so I could have factored number 2. It's possible. I could not have factored number 1 because I got square root answers. Questions about that? All right, flip to the back real quick. Okay, I would like to not do number 3 and just talk about number 4. If I start with number 4 looking like this, no matter whether I'm factoring or using quadratic formula, what do I have to do before I can do either one? Move everything to one side. So that first step, no matter whether you choose factoring or quadratic formula, you still move everything to one side. I would probably move everything to the left in this one by adding it. So it's going to look like x squared plus 7x plus 5 equals 0. If you got to choose your own method on this, okay, this will be a quick review of factoring before your quiz. If I wanted to see if I could factor this, I would come over here, I'd make a box. I always would check for a what first? Greatest common factor. This has none. So I would put x squared here and I would put 5 here. And I would multiply those numbers, which means I'm looking at 5 and saying, what factors of 5 add up to 7? None. What does that mean about factoring? I can't factor. That's why we learned quadratic formula. Okay? So that means if I try it, then I come over here and say, all right, now I know quadratic formula. A, B, C. 1, 7, 5. Okay? Take a minute on your paper. Plug in the numbers to the quadratic formula and simplify. All right, so check your answer on number 4. You can't take anything out of 29. Nothing goes into it. It's prime. So we can leave it there. Okay. All right, so we're going to do some more quadratic formula practicing for homework today. Just remember, your answers are to look like this, or like fractions or whole numbers. They are not to look like random decimals that you rounded because you typed a square root of something into your calculator. Okay? Remember that? All right, so quiz for today, quick review. Quick review for quiz. When we are solving by factoring, step 1 is to move everything to one side so that it equals 0, right? What do we always do first then? Check for a GCF. Okay. And after you check for a greatest common factor, you either finish using the box, or sometimes if it has a greatest common factor, that's all you can do. You take that out, and then you skip straight to number 4, which is what do you do with your factors at the end to get an answer? You set your factors equal to 0 and solve. So all of these questions, if you've noticed quadratic formula or factoring, these are all x equals at the end. Okay? So you want an x equals at the end for these. Remember, this quiz is just solving by factoring. It does not include quadratic formula, so don't go there. Right. So you can't use it. If you'd like to check your answers using quadratic formula, you may do that. Use the quadratic formula and see if you get the same answers. It's a big waste of time, but I will not accept that as your only work. I need to see your factoring work. Yep.